Hi, everyone. So glad to be here today. I am Angie Jones, and I'm the Senior Director of Developer Relations at Tools. Today, I'm going to do a bit of a different talk. It's kind of a recap, maybe, of all the things that you've heard today, as well as sharing some of my tips around speaking engagement. So, I want to take you from the beginning all the way to the end, okay? But first, let me share my story a little bit, how I got into speaking. So, I went to a tech conference and I didn't learn anything new at this conference. I went to talk after talk, and everything that I heard were things that I already knew. And I had to check myself because I was about to kind of, criticize the conference. But I thought to myself, if you know everything already, then why aren't you up there speaking? And it was a challenge to myself. Like, maybe I should give a talk. And I took that as a to-do item. One of those things that kind of goes on your backlog and, you don't really make any conscious efforts towards it. You know the type. So I was actually scrolling on Twitter one day, minding my own business, and this tweet popped up. And what kept my attention was this Black woman in dreadlocks with the word keynote speaker in the tweet. And I thought, wow, a Black woman with dreadlocks keynoting a tech conference. I didn't know what this conference was, but I know I had to go to it. And I bought my ticket that same day. Fortunately, this conference was Right Speak Code, and it totally changed my life. I went there, and not only did I get to see Anise Davis, that's who this is, but I learned about how, voices like mine are needed on the conference stage, and how to go about the process, just like you're doing today. I left that conference so fired up. I just knew that my life was going to change. I knew it. You know how you can just feel these pivotal moments in your life? This was one of those. I knew it. Back then, never had given a conference talk, hadn't written a blog post or anything like that. I left that conference, and that was 5 years ago. And since then, I have given over 200 talks in more than 17 countries around the world. And just like I said, it was a life-changing moment for me. I enjoyed doing this so much. I was doing it kind of, in my spare time because I was working, full-time engineering job as well. So it was beginning to take a life of its own. And I had to figure out, like, how do I balance this? And fortunately, I learned about developer relations. So this actually is now my job. So now I get to do the talks, the blogging, all of that for a living. So it's really cool. So glad to share that story with you. And in this talk today, I'm going to take you step by step on how do you secure speaking engagements, right? I have 10 steps for you. Okay. So first step, the most challenging part of all of this is probably choosing a topic, right? Especially if you suffer from imposter syndrome, right? You'll feel like there's nothing you can talk about that people don't already know. This is common. And there's a couple of ways that you can combat this. Not everyone is an expert, even though we might think that to ourselves. And the conferences know this as well. So they're going to set up sessions that are for different levels. So you'll have your beginner, you'll have your intermediate, you'll have your advanced topics. Sometimes I have a topic and I'm like, oh, it's so beginner. All of the experts in the room are going to be like, why would she do a talk on this? But I have to think about, okay, well, they're not my audience for this talk. This talk will be for the people who don't have this insight yet. This is a one-on-one type of talk, right? And that's totally fine, right? So you can craft something for beginners. If you have something a little bit more intermediate, you don't want to go through the basics, you'll have an audience for that. If you want something more advanced, you'll have an audience for that. Don't worry about that. There's an audience for wherever you are or wherever you want to talk. Another key tip, this one is key, write this one down. You need to approach this as if you're sharing your story. And this really helps with nerves. It helps with imposter syndrome. And what I mean by this is you're speaking from this stance where this is how I approached it, or this is how my team solved this issue, versus a teaching standpoint, right? Versus let me show you how to do X, Y, Z, and this is the only way ever to do it. The difference in that, one, like I said, it's going to help you with imposter syndrome, help you get over your nerves. And also, it kind of disarms your audience as well. So your audience, they can't debate with you how you did something, right? Your experience can't be wrong. This is your experience, right? It's much easier to prepare when it's your experience. If you're sharing this in story format, resonates much, much better with the audience versus, just a bunch of tech facts or whatever. Even if your topic happens to be covered by other people, I hear that one a lot. Well, I have this topic, but, I already know of 3 people who've done talks on this topic. I probably shouldn't do it. You can, if it's a crowded space, I totally understand that. Sometimes I shy away from those as well. However, think about if there's an interesting perspective or, if sharing your story gives this, a new life, more context, if you will, right? I can sit in talks and I can hear like these technical tidbits and they don't really resonate. Some of it's over my head. Some of it, I just don't have the context. Some of it, I don't know when or where I would use this. Your stories being added to your talks can help with that. Okay. I highly recommend that you choose a topic that you actually care about for a couple of different reasons. One, it's easier to write things, your slides, your talk, if you care about that topic. It also reduces this risk of procrastination, and you're probably going to procrastinate. I procrastinate on every slide deck I have to write because I don't like to write slide decks. So having it be something that I actually care about, I'm actually passionate about, helps a lot. If it's a topic that I'm kind of being forced into giving a talk about, I'm really going to procrastinate, right? It's just not going to be a good experience for me. And that kind of, the audience sees that. The audience can see that you don't really care about this, right? So if at all possible, definitely choose topics that you care about. It'll show up on stage. People will be able to sense that you care about it. I give talks about some topics that a lot of people don't care about, like testing your software is a big one that I talk about. A lot of people don't want to hear a conference talk about testing your software. It's like, well, what can she say? But I'm so passionate about it that other people get excited about it from hearing me talk about it. And it makes them want to go out and do a better job at testing their software. So definitely things that you care about. And if you still can't think of a topic, right? Your imposter syndrome, they ate their Wheaties that day and you just can't get over this hurdle. I have a little trick for you. I can trick my imposter syndrome by setting a timer. And I'll set this timer for like not long. It has to be seconds, not minutes. So maybe like 15, 20 seconds, 30 maybe, tops. And what you want to do is in that 30 seconds, you want to write down anything that you could possibly talk about. Like just, quick little sentences or titles of things that you know a little bit of something about, right? This timer trick, it doesn't give room or time for the imposter syndrome to set in. Like you're on the clock, so you don't have time to listen to imposter syndrome. And so you'll write out maybe a good 5, ideas there. So try that out and let me know if that works for you. Okay, the next step is deciding on a format. And there's typically 3 types of formats for giving a presentation. Let me explain those. The first one is track talks. So track talks, this is like a talk that I'm giving right now. These are usually either like 15-minute, those are known as lightning talks. There's 30-minute slots, there's 45 minutes, there's 60 minutes. Depends on the conference and their scheduling, right? I like to aim for writing my talks for the 45-minute mark. That's the most common one, and therefore I can reuse it at different conferences. And if I happen to need to give this talk at a conference where my slot is maybe 30 minutes, then I can cut that down easily. I can cut a 45-minute down to a 30. If I need to extend it to a 60, okay, I can add a little bit or, leave room for questions or more audience interaction. So 45 feels safe for me. Some conferences have one track, like this conference, right? And what that means is no talks are being held at the same time. So everyone can hear your talk. Now, this is important to determine. When you go to submit to the conference, determine that. Go see if they have like a single track or if it's multi-track. The reason for that is because your audience is going to be different. If you have a multi-track conference, that means you can get a little bit more focused on your talk. You can scope it to like a niche area, for example. Let me say this. If there was like this tech conference, general tech, we're just talking about tech in general, and they had multi-tracks, that's fine for me to do maybe a Java talk because people have other options they can choose. But if it's a single track tech conference, I can't do a Java talk there and expect the entire audience to want to hear that, right? So that's why that matters. These track talks, usually unpaid, and I'm going to speak as if the world is open because I want the world to be open. And hopefully by time, you submit your abstracts and speak somewhere, the world will be back open. So I'm going to speak from that standpoint. So usually like the tracks are unpaid speaking engagements, but usually like travel, hotel may be included. And I'll talk a little bit more about payment and stuff like that. I'm giving you all the details. All right. Another type of talk would be a workshop. So workshops can be 90 minutes. It could be 120 minutes. It could be half day. It could be a full day. Some people enjoy teaching more than speaking. And that's what you're doing in the workshop, right? You're teaching people how to do something versus you giving the talk for 45 minutes. The workshops are definitely more hands-on. For me, they're less nerve-wracking. So, I'm working with a much smaller group. The spotlight is not on me. People are more concerned about, their environment and getting their setup working or whatever we're doing for the workshop. So, a little less stressful. However, it's more work. Definitely upfront, right? You have to plan exercises. You have to plan interaction between the attendees. You have to write up a document or something to help them get set up, maybe send all of that stuff out in advance. You have to be technical support. You know how you go home for Christmas or something and everybody's asking you to do their tech stuff? Well, imagine a room full of people asking you to do that. So people are going to come with different operating systems, different types of devices. Some of them are going to be behind, VPN at work, and they can't install the stuff you need to. It's a lot. All right. So just keep that in mind. But usually workshops are paid. Standard rate, is kind of, it varies. It could be, $500 or something for a couple of hours, maybe $750 for a half day, $1,500 for a full day. And this is like on the lower end, right? So I don't want to get your hopes up high. You think like you're about to make a couple of, tens of thousands of dollars or something on a workshop. It can get there, but for most people, these are the standard rates. Okay. Keynotes, that's another format. These are usually invite only, so this is not something that you typically apply to. These are usually experienced speakers, notable people in the space. These are more than a talk, right? If you're doing a keynote, you're aiming to invoke something more, like inspiration or reflection or humor or something. You're trying to invoke something more than just giving information. These are typically paid. The amount varies drastically depending on the conference, depending on your popularity and your draw. These could go anywhere from like $1,500 to $50,000, right? It really, really, really just depends. All right. Okay. The third step is drafting an outline. You have your topic, you have your format. Now you want to make sure that you actually have something to talk about. And that's what an outline does for you. So this helps me figure out the direction of my talk without needing to invest, a bunch of work up front. From here, I can tell if this talk actually has legs or not. I can see if I have enough content to fill the format that I'm thinking of. And if I don't have enough, that's okay, right? Because like I said, different conferences have different time slots. So I might have enough and I thought it was going to be 45, but it's like, nah, this is more like a 30-minute or even a lightning talk kind of thing. And that's okay. Or it might be so much you say, this would probably be better as like a workshop or something like that. So this helps you determine like if the format you were thinking of is the right one. Okay. Conferences do what's called a CFP, and I'm sure you heard a lot about this term today, call for proposals. You need to submit to the conference an abstract of which you'd like to talk about. And there's a couple of different ways to find these CFPs. Twitter is a great place to find them. If there are any conferences that you know of that you want to speak at, highly recommend following them on Twitter, maybe even setting up alerts for when they tweet. So you'll know like when the CFP is open. Some of them will even have a website where you can kind of subscribe so that they'll email you when the CFP is open. So you kind of keep your eye out for this. A more proactive approach is a site like PaperCall. So this is papercall.io. You can search for certain areas. So you can go here, let's say your jam is React. You can go and search for React. You can see all of the conferences that are around that topic. You can search by location. You can even click on the offers travel assistance. So if you're looking for a conference that will pay for your travel, then you can find those there as well. Now, whether you use PaperCall or you find out about the CFP some other way, you want to be sure to read what's in it for the speaker, okay? At a bare minimum, make sure that the speakers get a free ticket into the conference. And this is humorous. This feels like this should be a given, but sometimes it's not. There are some conferences, very few, but still some, who will require you to still buy a ticket to come and speak at the conference. If you're speaking there, you're providing value. Do not pay to get in, okay? Promise me that. It would also be lovely if your travel's covered, if the conference is not in your city. A lot of conferences don't cover this because they assume that your company is going to cover it. And that may be true. If you can get your company to cover this, then great. Your company does get some value from you being on stage, right? But I hope that you don't come out of your own pocket for this, unless, you just wanted a vacation to this city anyway. That's fine. But if at all possible, try to get either that conference or your company to sponsor your travel. Same with hotel. All right. Another thing you'll find on the CFPs is the theme of the conference. This is very important. Most likely this will have some detail about the kinds of topics that they are looking for. Here's an example of a CFP from OSCON. OSCON is O'Reilly's conference. And it's informing you that they have 5 tracks, right? So they're telling you, these are the topics, these are the themes that we're looking for. You need to submit a talk that fits one of these themes. It's important, otherwise your chances of getting into this conference are extremely low, okay? If it doesn't fit the theme, don't try to force it, find another conference. But let me tell you, sometimes I will see people and they're very upset because they didn't get accepted into some conference. And when I ask them, well, would you like me to review your CFP? And then I review your abstract, and then I look at the CFP, I see why they didn't get in. It doesn't match one of the themes, right? Those themes are not like cute little suggestions. They're going to maybe divide their conference into these types of tracks. So there's literally nowhere to stick your talk if it doesn't fit that. So be very mindful of that, okay? Now for actually writing the abstract. The abstract essentially has 3 sections. The title. So the proposals are usually scored by like a panel of reviewers. And this is typically done by volunteers who are reviewing these at home in their spare time, right? They have hundreds of these to go through. So naturally, this can feel a bit dull after a while. And the title is going to be the very first thing that they see. So having an eye-catching title is extremely important. It nudges them in your favor, right? They're already rooting for you. They see this cool title and it's like, oh, this is going to be good. They're already excited about it, okay? It should be eye-catching, but not vague. It should give some insight into like what the talk is going to be about. And it should, clearly describe like what you're going to cover without going into too much detail. And the reason for this is your title is not just for the reviewers. It plays a part at the conference as well. This is where people are looking at the agenda. If it's a multi-track conference, it's a quick glance at the agenda. Which talks are next? And people are trying to decide which one they're going to. They're not going to sit down and read your long abstract. They have like 30 seconds to make a decision because they got to get going in whatever direction they're going in, right? So looking at the titles, you want a catchy one so that people will choose your talk, right? And even if it's a single track conference, sometimes I'm choosing between you and the hallway track, meaning I'm going to go hang out and go network with people. So if you have a boring, dull title and you lucked up and got past the reviewers and you're in the conference, it still doesn't mean people are going to want to come if the title isn't good. Okay, so it's really, really important. Next, you're going to need a body for the abstract. Now, this doesn't have to be a book. It should start with a challenge that people can identify with, and it should include a description of a solution to that challenge. And that's it, right? It should be enough detail that the reviewers can get a sense of what you want to cover in your talk, and be able to determine that you actually thought this thing out and it's not just a wild idea that you had. But don't put so much detail in that the reviewers dread reading it, or that the conference goers have no need to come to your talk, because you already put every single thing in the abstract, right? You want to leave a little bit of suspense, but you have to give enough so that people actually want to hear what you're going to say. And then finally, you want to highlight the key takeaways, right? For people who come to your talk, what are they going to get out of this? And I usually do this in like 3 bullet points. Here are the 3 main takeaways you'll get from my talk. All right. I'm going to show you an example of one of my talks. So here's the title: The Build That Cried Broken. Whew. Good, right? You already know this is about to be good, right? And it's a little vague. So if I have like a really catchy title, but it's a little vague, I'll put a subtitle with it. So building trust in your continuous integration test. So that gives you a little bit more of what I'm going to talk about, right? But that build that cried broken, that's good right there. Okay. And then here's the abstract. In the abstract, I start storytelling right off the bat. First paragraph, storytelling. A reviewer sees this, they're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know she about to give a good talk, right? She know how to tell stories. People like stories, okay." And then the second paragraph, I then talk about the problem area and relate it to the story I told in the first paragraph. Come on, y'all. Come on. You want this talk, right? Okay, and then I give them the solution here. So like I said, I like to leave a little bit of suspense, but you can only get away with like a little bit of suspense, because reviewers actually hate this, right? They want you to put some detail, but you don't want to give away your whole talk, right? And then finally, my 3 bullet points with the key takeaways. Okay, this is good stuff. You want to hear it. All right. Submit however many abstracts you want. I wouldn't flood it with like 10 or anything like that, but it's okay to submit more than 1 abstract, right? This is kind of like raffle tickets, right? So you don't buy 1 raffle ticket, you buy like 5 raffle tickets, and you're like, okay, one of them might get chosen. Same thing with the CFP. I think a good number is maybe like 3 or 4. Anything more than 4 starts feeling obnoxious from a reviewer standpoint. But here's the thing. If I see like maybe 3 or 4 from a reviewer standpoint, I see 3 or 4 from the same person, to me, it signals that they really want to speak at this conference. Not only that, it plays with the mind a little bit, because I don't feel like I can reject 4 topics from a person. Like that feels cruel or something, So it goes from, am I going to accept this person, to, which one of these 4 topics would be the best fit for the conference? So it's almost like they have a sure in. As long as they have, one of these things is on topic and good enough, they've pretty much got a sure in, right? And that's just me. I'm speaking from my standpoint. I can't speak for all reviewers. You might submit 5 and still don't get in. That happens as well. But this will definitely increase your odds. Also, you can submit the same talk to multiple conferences. Even if you give this talk somewhere else, you can still give it at another conference. Don't think you have to give this one talk that one time and that's it, right? I give my talks like I'm Beyonce giving a concert tour or something, right? Think about it like that. So she's not making one album and then going to, do the concert in one country and then that's it. No, she's taking that multiple cities in the country. She's going all over the world with it. Same thing for your talk. The audiences are going to be different every time, I promise you. So I'll write like a couple of talks for a year, and then I'm just doing those talks. I'm taking those on the road, if you will. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. Now, after you submit, you need to wait for the review. This can take a couple of months. And of course, you're going to get rejected or you're going to get accepted. If you get rejected, that is okay. You're more likely to get rejected than not, to be honest, right? Think about it. They only have a certain number of slots. They have hundreds of people who have applied. Only so many people can fill those slots. Ask for feedback if you want feedback. Make sure you're in the mind state to want feedback before you ask for it. Sometimes people ask and they're not ready to really hear the feedback. And that it could be multiple reasons. Some things they'll say, some things they won't say. So I'll tell you the things that they won't even say. It could be, someone else wrote an abstract, similar topic or same topic, but similar abstract, and theirs was better. So they went with them. Or yours was better, but that person is a bigger name. They have a bigger following, a bigger draw. At the end of the day, these conferences need to sell tickets. Even if the tickets are free, they want to fill the seats. So a bigger name might trump your abstract. Okay. That's just, I'm not saying it's right. That's what it is. So these are things to keep in mind. So don't ask for feedback if you don't really want it. It could be that it wasn't on theme, right? I told you, pay attention to those themes. If it's not on theme, it's pretty much not getting in. If you get accepted, you'll need to decide if you can still do it or not, right? So they'll ask you, do you still want to do it? So even if you're not sure, like I've had times I apply for a conference, I'm not even sure I'm going to be available at that date. Who knows? That's like a year from now, right? So you just apply. Don't worry about it. And then when they accept it, they'll ask you, can you still do it? By then you kind of know, okay, yeah, I will, or no, I have something else going on. And that's fine. They have backups. Trust me. All right. After you accept, then you can start writing your talk. Do not wait until the last minute to write this talk. This part takes so much time, more than you're going to estimate, right? And honestly, it's not a fun activity. I hate writing talks, to be honest with you. It's about the same amount of fun as writing a book report. So imagine writing a book report the day before it's due. That's really not a good time. So don't do that. Start as early as possible, so that you only have to do like a little bit each week and it doesn't feel as icky. Now you already have your outline. So you have your talk mapped out. Now you use that outline for direction and you're basically going to just flesh out the details. Okay. Be sure, even when you're writing the talk, I have to remind myself of this all the time, that I'm sharing versus teaching, right? It's much easier to write talks where you're sharing your experiences and your stories than it is if you're trying to teach people something, right? The stories, they go over, the sharing, all of that goes over much better with the audience than if you're like preaching to them, okay? Even, after doing this 200 times, I still have to remind myself of this, like every single talk. And because it's really easy to forget. You're taking the stage. Naturally, you feel like, you need to lead towards teaching the audience something. Remind yourself, you're sharing. Allow people to pull their own lessons from your story. As for slides, so I know there was a talk on slides, so that was great. I'll be quick on this. I either use images or I use big text phrases. Images are great when you want to do some storytelling. So just a slide with a great big image on it, nothing else, right? This is aesthetically pleasing to the audience. It's not distracting. They'll try to connect the dots a little bit to what you're trying to say, but they have to pay attention to you to get what it is you want to say. And you can include like notes and stuff. So if you want to share your slides afterwards, they'll have the notes there with the details and stuff. Okay. I use text when it's not really story form, and the audience will probably need to take notes like today. When you use text, use short phrases like I have here. A bunch of text is going to cause people to try to read that text versus listening to you. And what's going to happen is they're going to hurry up and read it, and they can read it faster than you can say it. So they're going to hurry up and read it. They're going to stop listening to you. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to check their Twitter feed, and you kind of lost them at that point. So limited amount of text. All right. Another thing, write this one down. Bullets kill. Try to avoid bullet points on your slide. They're ugly. They're boring. Right now, I'm still on point number 7. And in my outline slide, this slide was like a sub bullet, right? I could have had a slide that said point 7, and I could have had 4 sub bullets under that, right? Or 4 bullet points under that. You would have read that, and then you would have been tuned out as I was describing each of those. So instead, make each one of the bullets its own slide. All right. Try to be creative with your talk if you can find a way to do so. These make the best talks. Honestly, I think that's how I got my, my name in the conference world. It's because I try to make really creative talks, like that abstract I showed you about the boy that cried wolf, right? I decided to I wrote my outline, I had my regular points. And then when I went to make the slides, I was going to tell a story of, how we went through this whole process where no one trusted the bills and what we did. And I kept that story, but when I wanted to write my slides, I wanted something more interesting. So I was like, I wrote the abstract with that based on the Aesop fable, the boy who cried wolf. Are there Aesop fables for like the rest of these points that I'm trying to make? And so I went looking and, reading all of these Aesop fables and found ones for each one. So the way I present that talk is I tell a fable, Aesop fable, and then I have the moral of the story, and then I apply that moral of the story to my continuous integration story. So it's like 2 stories that are interwoven, and they're connected by the moral of the Aesop fable. So that's really creative. That's really interesting. That talk was a hit, right? It's fun, it's memorable, it's entertaining. People want to be educated, but they also get bored of sitting and talk after talk after talk, listening to people, speaking at them. So a theme helps make your talk feel less like a teaching session and more like an experience. Okay. I try to use themes whenever possible. I have a talk like with the elements of game design, and I demonstrate how that can be useful for automation strategies. I've done a talk where I go through the history of the music industry and show how to adapt to technological changes based on the lessons from that. So, you can definitely get creative. There's a lady, Nadia Odanayo. She did a talk called The Case of the Missing Method, a Ruby mystery. And in that talk, she plays a detective where she's going through this Ruby code and debugging it and trying to find clues and stuff to figure out what happens. Brilliant. Crystal Martin, she did a talk on asynchronous programming using her natural hair care routine. Very interesting stuff, right? So these are really fun. This makes writing the slides a little bit more fun. It also makes Twitter explode, like with praises of how amazing you are. And this is how you start getting into your next gig. So you go from a point where you're not having to submit to CFPs as much because you're getting invitations to come. And that's how those come. Another thing is, you see how my handle is on my slide? When I'm saying things, you might want to tweet it out. And I'm helping you do that by putting my handle on my slide. So sometimes there'll be a conference where I'm getting more tweets than other speakers, and people think, dang, she killed that conference. I might didn't kill that conference, but because I had my handle there, I got more, visibility. So it looks like I killed that conference, right? Just a little trip. Make sure you keep your handle on all your slides. All right. Now with the theme thing, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is not easy to do. And that's okay. It's optional. You don't have to do this. If you can't think of something clever, don't worry about it. The content is what's most important. All right. Another reason to get your talk written as early as possible is so that you can practice. This makes a world of difference on your delivery. The more practice you have, the more prepared you feel, and the more confident you're going to be on stage. Now, I write notes when I'm practicing. I do not memorize these notes at all. If you memorize your whole script and you try to get on stage and give it, if you forget something, you're thrown off, and you're going to spend the next probably 5 minutes trying to regain your confidence. So I don't even try to memorize it. In fact, my notes are for practicing, and I don't even, read them during my talk, because I feel like that takes me away from the audience. I like to connect with the audience. And if I'm reading notes, there's a slight disconnect there. All right. Your slide should be cues to yourself, visually appealing to the audience, but they're a cue to you to let you know what you're supposed to say there. Make sure you know what you're supposed to say on every slide, and make sure that it flows. Okay. I can't practice for real in front of like my husband or like a friend. I have to do a real practice. And so I'll do these like at work or at a small meetup, but this is really good because you can take a lot from this. Where did I stumble? After the talk, let me go back and read my notes. Was there anything that I forgot to say? Why did I forget? Maybe that slide needs a better cue, or based on the questions that come at the end. You might get questions, think, oh yeah, that was a good point. I probably should include that in the talk. Or they asked me this question and I already said it in the talk. Why did they know? Maybe that was a dry and boring part, right? What parts feel dry and boring? Go back and rework those. So you might want to add, something, maybe a video, memes, GIFs, anything to spice that part up. Or if it's not that important to the talk, cut it all together. All right. Revise if you need to. So the rough patches based on the Q&A and all of that. All right, now you're ready to take the stage. Nerves are natural. You're going to be nervous. That's okay. What helps me, I constantly remind myself. If I feel like I'm getting nervous, I say, remember, you're just sharing your story. And that calms me down. Knowing that I'm just sharing my story, this cannot be wrong, makes me feel okay. Bring your personality to the stage. If it's only content, it's going to be dry. I see like hundreds of talks a year, and most of them are boring because people are just giving content. Give us some personality. You don't have to be a comedian. You don't have to tell jokes or anything like that, but a little bit of personality, and that will really come out if you're sharing your stories. Be sure you own the energy, right? So as a speaker, you're naturally going to feed off the audience. That's really difficult in virtual settings. Like right now, I can't see any of you. I'm not reading the chat. So I can't really feed off of your energy. So I have to bring my own energy. In person, the same way. Some audiences are not going to have a lot of energy. And if you go and you try to feed off them and they have nothing for you to eat, then you might sink. So bring your own energy. Even if the crowd is dry and boring, you stay at 100, maybe even 110. Sometimes they feed off you and they flip. All right. Make sure that you control the Q&A. So you stay in control. Don't let people like take over. It's okay to say if you don't know something. Have quick comebacks. Think about this in advance. If somebody tries to take over, what are you going to say? If somebody tries to correct something you said, what are you going to say? Think about these responses in advance. All right. And the final thing is to celebrate. After you finish your talk, you did it. I don't care if you did well or not. You did the talk. I want you to celebrate that, right? after maybe a day or two, reflect on it. Is there anything that you can change about it? If there anything is there anything you can improve upon? Remember, we're taking this talk on tour, so you can finesse it a little bit. Okay. And I just want to leave you with this from Mina Markham. These are the stages of delivering a talk, right? You go through this. It's a roller coaster ride. By the end of it, though, you feel pretty good. So hang in there, get to the stage, and then do it again. We're going to run it back. All right. So thank you so much. Hopefully these tips were useful for you. I believe in you. Go kill it. If any of this has been helpful when you give your talk, definitely tag me and I'm going to celebrate with you. All right. All right. Thank you so much. What questions do we have?